Have you ever scrolled online and stumbled upon the idea of a lost, advanced, global civilization called the Tartarian Empire? It's a captivating story, full of magnificent architecture, forgotten technology, and a massive historical cover-up. But what if I told you that this grand empire, as it's often described, never actually existed in any credible historical or archaeological record? Today, we're going to strip away the speculation and look at the documented reality. So, where did the name Tartary even come from? It wasn't the name of an empire. From the Middle Ages right through the 18th century, European writers and mapmakers used Tartary as a vague geographical label. Think of it as a placeholder. It covered huge, poorly understood parts of Central Asia, Siberia, and the Eurasian steppe. Europeans simply lacked detailed knowledge of the region, so they slapped on a general term. It was a name born from ignorance, not a unified political state. When you look at old maps labeled Tartary, you're not seeing a single, cohesive empire. Instead, that label groups together many completely unrelated peoples. We're talking about various Mongol groups, Tatars, numerous Turkic tribes, and different nomadic confederations. These groups had no shared administration, no single language, no common currency, and no unified legal system. The label Tartary created a false sense of unity where none existed. It was a cartographic shortcut, not a reflection of a real-world empire. A lot of the confusion comes from mixing up Tartary with the very real Mongol Empire. The Mongols, under leaders like Genghis Khan, did establish a vast, powerful empire in the 13th century. And here's the key difference. The Mongol Empire is incredibly well documented. We have detailed records from Chinese, Persian, Islamic, and European sources. We know about its rise, its administration, its military campaigns, and its eventual decline. Archaeologists have found its coins, fortifications, burial sites, and administrative records. The Mongol Empire wasn't erased from history. It has been studied extensively for centuries. It's a known, tangible part of our past. Now, let's talk about the so-called Tartarian technology and architecture. Proponents of the theory often point to grand, ornate buildings from the 18th and 19th centuries, things like Old World-style train stations, massive stone government buildings, and star forts, and claim they are remnants of this lost empire. The problem with this is that these structures have very clear and well-documented histories. We have the construction records. We know the names of the architects. We have the funding histories and the receipts. We know exactly who built them and when. Attributing them to a mysterious, ancient empire ignores a mountain of visually verifiable evidence. The timeline for these buildings is completely intact and places them firmly in recent history, not some forgotten epoch. The core of the myth often involves a global mud flood or some other disaster that supposedly wiped out Tartaria and buried its cities, leading to a worldwide cover. But for a catastrophe of that scale, there would be undeniable physical evidence. Geologists would find a distinct layer in the soil, a global burn stratum, or a synchronized destruction horizon in rock layers all around the world. We have found evidence of massive asteroid impacts and volcanic eruptions in the geological record. But there is absolutely nothing to support a recent, global cataclysm that wiped out a civilization. Archaeology across Europe and Asia shows cultural continuity and evolution, not a sudden, complete disappearance and replacement. Civilizations, especially advanced ones, leave behind a ton of stuff. They leave trash pits, debris layers, broken tools, and foundations. These layers, studied in archaeology through stratigraphy, tell a story. Tartaria, as a lost advanced empire, has no such layer. It simply doesn't exist in the archaeological record. So what about those eerie old photographs used as proof? You've probably seen them. Black and white images of grand cities with empty streets or massive buildings that look half-finished. These are often presented as evidence of repopulation after the Tartarian collapse. But the real context is far less mysterious. These photos typically show cities under construction in the early morning before streets got busy, or during recovery from well-documented disasters like the San Francisco earthquake of 1906, the Great Chicago Fire, or the aftermath of various wars. Urban centers have always been in a state of construction and reconstruction. So, if there's no evidence, why is this idea so popular? It really took off in online communities, where a general distrust of mainstream institutions blends with a human tendency for patter-seek. Old maps with unfamiliar names, architectural styles that seem out of place, and a desire for a more exciting version of the past all get woven together. By connecting these unrelated dots, a compelling narrative is formed. But this method of research conveniently ignores primary source documents, archaeological stratigraphy, linguistic analysis, and scientific dating methods, like carbon dating. Think about what it would take to actually erase a global civilization from history. It would require an unprecedented level of coordination and suppression across dozens of rival states, competing cultures, and different languages, all working together perfectly for centuries. Such a thing has never happened in human history. We have conflicting records for even small, local events. The idea that an entire advanced, worldwide civilization could vanish without a single, undisputed trace, leaving behind only some decorative buildings, is just not plausible. This isn't to say the real societies of the Eurasian steppe weren't impressive. They were incredibly sophisticated in their own right. They were masters of mobility, governance, and warfare, perfectly adapted to one of the world's harshest environments. Their technology was brilliant. For that needs innovations in cavalry, archery, and portable living. But they didn't build globe-spanning energy grids or a unified network of stone cities. There is no evidence they ever tried it. Their genius lay elsewhere. Ultimately, the persistence of the Tartarian Empire myth tells us more about modern psychology than it does about ancient history. We humans are often drawn to hidden, conspiratorial explanations of a complex, gradual processes. A mystery can feel more profound than simple documentation. We mistake an absence of knowledge for active concealment. History isn't a neat and tidy archive. It's fragmented. It's often written by the victors, and it's full of gaps. But it is fundamentally constrained by physical evidence. Any claim about the past must align with artifacts, with timelines, and with verification from different sources. The theory of Tartaria as a lost, advanced empire fails on all three counts. The real past is often less dramatic, but it's far more instructive. We see how societies rise, adapt, break apart, and dissolve. We see how power shifts, and how knowledge is transferred unevenly. Nothing just vanishes without leaving a residue. In the end, Tartary was a name on a map, not a nation. The empire never existed. The myth survives because it offers a simple, exciting story of intentional deception to explain the complexities and uncertainties of the past. But when we look at the actual evidence, the story falls apart. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you enjoy untangling historical mysteries and separating fact from fiction, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. See you next time.